Welcome. I wanted to talk today about designing bathrooms for the elderly and specifically looking at what can be done to make the bathroom easier to use and easier to maintain and safer. And this is not just for the elderly, it's also for anybody who has mobility issues. You can look at ageinplaceeducation.org for more information on anything I say today. Okay, so first of all, a lot of things you see advertised about making the bathroom ready for someone who's aging in place often shows images like this. These are not things that I would actually recommend. This kind of tub, not only is it expensive, it is not easy to use and not easy to maintain. So there's still a lip that someone's going to have to lift their legs to get over, which can pose a challenge for a lot of people. There's a seat in there. It's going to take a long time for it to fill up and a long time to drain. So you're going to probably be feeling pretty cold in between. And it's going to be hard to get in there to clean it if you have limited mobility. Tubs cutouts like this are decent if you have a small budget. However, they are still a source of falls because there is still this lip to get over. If you use it in combination with a bath chair, here's some examples of bath chairs, specifically bath benches. Sometimes the chair will not go outside the bathtub, but you would ideally want something outside the bathtub that either the chair itself will slide over or the bench is long enough that the person can kind of scoot along on their bottom to be inside the tub. So if this tub had a cutaway, it would be easier for the person to get their feet into the tub. However, there are still some disadvantages to these kind of settings. One, imagine how are you going to keep the water in the tub? If you have a shower curtain here, it's going to have to bend up over the edge of this, and that's going to cause water to get on the floor, which now you have a slippery surface here. And unless you have a caregiver to help clean that space and dry it, you're going to have increased potential risk of falls. Other disadvantages is that it's going to be pretty hard to clean your bottom if your bottom is on top of this solid material. We don't typically recommend people just doing a cutout. Okay? If it's all you can afford, then do it. It's fairly inexpensive. But if you have the money, you should try to come up with another solution. Because once that fall happens, it can be a very slippery slope and health can decrease quite rapidly after a fall. So these kind of showers you will also typically see installed inside people's bathrooms. And they have some advantages, but they unfortunately have a lot of disadvantages too. So if we look at this one has a foam edge, like a rubber edge to hold water in, and sometimes these leak. My in-laws have a bath shower like this, and the wheelchair going over it ripped it, and then all sorts of water came out, and then the tile was not designed for a power wheelchair, and so it cracked, and so then you end up with water damage. So just be aware that these rubber linings are not ideal, as well as you can trip over them. If the person is walking, they can easily trip over it. You hardly see it. Also, you'll see there's very few grab bars in here, just very slippery surfaces. These hard edge showers prevent the water from coming out. However, they are major sources of tripping. So be aware of that. Also, in a shower like this, I would like to see grab bars that extend the length so that the person has something to hold on as they traverse the distance across the shower. What I think is preferable is to have a 0-step entrance to the shower, meaning it's completely flat. Now, this does take some extra designing, so you want to make sure that you get an expert that knows how to tilt the tile just slightly to make sure that it will, the water will indeed go down this style of drain. It's called a curtain drain or a linear drain, but this way there's no tripping hazard whatsoever. This one obviously needs some more grab bars as well. Okay. So we mentioned bath chairs. These are called rolling bath chairs, and what the advantage is that if someone really is pretty much wheelchair bound, you can roll a chair like this over top of the toilet and then roll it into the shower without without needing to transfer the person a second time, which is what's exhausting for both the caregiver and for the person who is needing to take a bath or a shower. What's also nice about this is that it would be easier to clean the private parts because there's a hole there that gives access to that part of the body, and that's a part of the body obviously that needs to be cleaned. So here's some other examples. This is a beautiful bathroom. I love that there's this built-in seat. It's very attractive. However, it might be very difficult to slide your bottom down it. It's very thoughtful that there's controls to the shower out here. So if you are the caregiver, you're not having to reach into the shower and get your arm or upper torso wet as you reach in to help the person turn on the shower. However, something like this, any towel rack needs to also be a grab bar because instinctively people will grab them and you don't want them just tipping over easily or pulling out of the wall. All the grab bars should be screwed into the studs. If you have the whole wall down, another thing you can do if the stud's not in the right height is you can put up a sheet of plywood. So if you put up a sheet of plywood prior to putting up the tile or the drywall, then you can screw those grab bars into whatever position is necessary. Okay. But just remove things that someone's going to grab onto and it cause them to trip. This glass is probably not ideal. It might break. Certainly it's a slippery surface, but I would prefer to see something with more grab bars on it. Here is a good example of toilets that would be easy to clean. If you think about when you're getting older, getting on your knees to clean those little knobs around a traditional toilet is not going to happen. Okay, so that's an area that would, if you can't afford a caregiver, it's just going to get gross. So they do sell toilets that don't have those. They're like these backless toilets, and they're very nice because they are easier to maintain them to look nice. There's no flat surface that's going to collect dirt, and it's going to be easier to clean around the toilet. A lot of times when you look up handicap accessible bathrooms, you see these huge bathrooms. And I like this picture because it's showing a small space and that this is possible in a small space. This is an example of a wet room. So the entire room can get wet. It's designed that way. It's not going to cause water damage if it's properly designed. And you'll notice that if somebody were to come in here with a wheelchair, you could back them in, use a transfer board for them to transfer to the toilet, and then have them transfer back to a bath chair. And, you could use this if you don't need a wheelchair. You could use this bench. It looks like it folds up. The shower head slides up and down, so it could be stored at a lower height. So someone who is in a seated position can reach the controls and turn it on without help. And you can see in this case that here's the drain, but literally the whole floor is designed to get wet, and you would need to be careful about what kind of tile you pick. There's a certain coefficient of friction that will allow you to slide but not get stuck. And if you look at aginginplaceeducation.org, at the checklist, it will give you a list of those coefficients. For example, if someone has Parkinson's, you actually want a little bit lower coefficient of friction because they tend to slip their feet when they walk. And so they're more likely to trip if there's too much friction. But everyone else in a bathroom, you want a higher amount of friction so that you're less likely to slide. And that's especially the case if you are using a wet room type solution for your bathroom. You can see, look, it's a small space, but yet every aspect of it is usable. So one last consideration is to consider, where would the caretaker stand? So if you are interested in designing a home for a forever home, for when you will eventually be aging in place, you want to make the space large enough that there's room for the caregiver to stand and to help with these different processes. Sometimes people forget about that someday they might need a caregiver and they don't leave space. So please consider that in your future, in your bathroom designs. I want to talk about grab bars. If you look on Amazon or at Home Depot, you are going to find many, many, many different types of grab bars. And where to place them depends on where the studs are, the height of the person, and their individual mobility weaknesses and strengths. So a good hint is to have the person sit in a mocked up area of the space and have them act through the process of getting into the shower space and out of the shower space, and watch them carefully. Where do they instinctively want to put their arms? Where are they looking for something to grab onto? And that's where you would want to put a grab bar to help them. Also to think through the ergonomics of it, like where are they going to have the most strength? And again, for more detailed information, look at aginplaceeducation.org and look at the checklist there, and it will tell you what heights are recommended for each of the grab bars. Please go to aginplaceeducation.org for more information.